Hello and welcome to Mrs. Staub's pencast on ionic compounds, and specifically all about polyatomic ions. So with our polyatomic ions, we've got our polyatomic ion chart, which this was the one that I use if you were in my own honors class or reg chem class, and this is the one you're probably used to seeing. You just did some practice ones using this same thing, but the problem is for AP, there's a different table. In fact, you don't get this table. You don't get any table at all. All you get is a periodic table, and it has no backside. It has no parts with polyatomic ions. So this chart has to be in your head. You got to either put this chart or this chart from your textbook into your head. You must know all of them, which is kind of seems like a lot. I agree with you. I understand where you're coming from. Let's take a look at some of the patterns that are there, and hopefully that can help you memorize them easier. This is a memorized case. No way about it. For example, looking at these two right here. The most common ions of the N and the O is called the nitrate one, NO3 minus. So the most common ion would be nitrate, and we name it nitrate with ATE because it's the most common. It also has the most number of O's in this case. You can see anything that's one O less, but with the same charge, is the nitrite ion. Same pattern is happening with the sulfate ion. The most common sulfate or SO kind of ion that you're going to have out there, because it's most stable, is the sulfate, SO42 minus. Same charge, but one less O, is the sulfite ion. So you can kind of see a pattern going on there. Different total number of O's between the nitrate and the sulfate, but the same idea. If you take a look at that idea, you can see right in the middle there, you've got the chlorate and chlorite. Same thought. The most common ion that you're going to find, the most stable one, is the chlorate, the ClO3 minus. One less O will give you the chlorite ion, same pattern as before. Two fewer O's but change charge is a hypochlorite. And then if you take that base one, the chlorate, and you do one greater, then it's a perchlorate ion. This is a set pattern for the different number of O's, and hopefully it'll help you as a way to memorize the different kinds of ions you have. Hypo is two few, per is one greater in O's. Something else that you can look at in period 2, the greatest number of O's that can be attached to the C or the N or any kind of polyatomic ion in that period are 3 O's. So maximum of 3 O's in period 2, and there's a maximum of 4 O's in period 3. When I look at this, I can see 3 O's in period 2, they differ by 1, 3 rows, 3 oxygens, period 2, and then the bottom one, 4 oxygens, period 3. So maybe that can help you out when you're looking at the phosphate, sulfates, and perchlorates. Another pattern that you can see within the polyatomic ions is this idea of hydrogen carbonate ion and the dihydrogen phosphate ion. You can see that the carbonate ion and the hydrogen carbonate ion, the only difference there is that you add a hydrogen. Easily enough, they help you out with the name there. It doesn't seem too tricky. If you add hydrogens, remember you're adding an H+, the proton, and that creates a different charge. So our carbonate went from a 2- to a 1- because you really are adding not just an H, but an H+. In the same way, your PO4 3- is going from a 3- to a 1- because you're adding 2 H+, 2 positives. So hopefully this pattern will help you out too. Either way you look at it, this chart, or the chart that I like to use myself also, this chart, it's got to be in your head. So from here on out, you need to do naming practice, not with these charts in front of you, without them in front of you. So what I would suggest right now is don't just go and start naming, doing the naming worksheet, your next step. I want you to take a second and really look at these names. Quiz yourself. Figure out a system that works for you between the two. Figure out how your brain can remember this, because it's going to be different for everyone, but your brain needs to remember what's going on here for the polyatomic ions. Something that makes AP different. You find a way that works for you. So take some time, relax. Flashcards maybe, but now's the time to learn it now.